All right. Welcome everyone to our July Time to Restore quarterly call. I'm Erin Postumus. I'm the Partnerships and Projects Manager at the NPN and the NPN lead on the Time to Restore project. We can start off the call with just introductions. If there's anything that anyone wants to share, what's happening with phenology where you are, or any project updates from your location, or any other things that you want to share that are relevant to this group. It could be like an upcoming event or something that some new resource or something you want to share. Feel free to do that. So I will pass it over to Teresa first, and then we can just kind of popcorn around.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa Crimmins. I'm the fortunate individual that gets to work with Erin almost every day. I'm with the National Phenology Network team, and I'm in Tucson. And I think the most notable phenological event that occurred recently is I had I think it was a broad-billed. I always forget if it's broad-billed or broad-tailed hummingbird mother make her nest right outside my office window here for the fourth summer in a row on a string of Christmas lights that I have hanging out there. And she laid two eggs, and one of them just recently fledged. The other one, unfortunately, the egg is still in there, so it's not viable. But I know I love watching it so much every year, and she keeps coming back. It's so cool. And with that, I'll pass it to Jean.
Yeah, we're just doing introductions and
Oh,
anything you want to share about stuff that's been going on with you, your organization, or whatever else you want to share.
Sorry,
um,
surprise.
surprise. Okay, so wow. Okay, I'm Jane Breckenridge, and I'm the director of Tribal Alliance for Pollinators, and we work with tribes on native plant restoration, both primarily in Oklahoma, but also across the United States. Um, and so we've been just trying to promote this project. I think we've been on since the beginning, since I think we were like one of the original partners, and just trying to promote not only the phenology work and the time to restore work, but native plant restoration in general, and just trying to do outreach about that and pollinator support. And so that's what we're doing. And in terms of big significant things to report, I actually don't I don't know. You caught me off guard. I came like from something else and I rushed in and I was late and now like I'm totally discombobulated. So I'll think of other things here as the meeting goes on. So sorry. I was late coming from another event, so I
No worries
apologize.
at all. Yeah, if you think of anything else, feel free to share it later.
Okay.
We're just kind of popcorning around too, but I can pick David if you want to go next.
Yes, I'd love to. Welcome, everybody. I'm David Gwynn. I'm the Texas State Coordinator for Time to Restore. Glad to be here. Big, exciting news for us is we're coming up in about 3 weeks with the Texas workshops. And this week, we've begun the rollout of the registration process and already have a number of people already registered for those workshops. We're expecting a very big and excited turnout. So we're really excited about that. And then in terms of phenology, I'm extremely happy to report that I'm on my fourth brood of eastern bluebirds in my yard, which doesn't happen in Texas very often. But when we get one of these really moist years, the caterpillars are enough to allow the bluebirds to go through a fourth cycle of fledging. So we had a major hurricane here a few weeks ago, and I thought I was going to lose them, but that parent pair managed to pull through for their full fledging, and those young left the nest box this week. So very, very excited. I'll pass it to Gina.
Hey everybody, sorry, I was trying to make sure my camera settings are working today. So, hi, my name is Gina Lloyd. I'm the Louisiana State Coordinator for those of y'all who I have not yet met. Phenologically, oh man, Julie Whitbeck is also on this call and she can corroborate this. It has been beastly hot, but lots of interesting things going on. We have some native passiflora that are blooming, a lot of plants starting to set and ripen fruit. But yeah, it's been a pretty intense summer for weather, a lot of heavy rainfall. One of my favorite things is that last year we didn't really have a chanterelle bloom at all because it was so dry in South Louisiana. But this year I am just like wading through chanterelles every time I go out into the bottomland hardwood. So very pleased about that. As far as, yeah, you too. You're on it, yeah. So for upcoming events and news for Louisiana, we are planning workshops for all of our partners in the South Louisiana region for fall in-person training workshops. So that's the Audubon Louisiana Nature Center, hopefully, and a few others around the state. So always good to bring in some fresh folks. We had some regular volunteers that were pretty consistent for the past year who have unfortunately moved to a different state. So kind of in the heavy recruiting phase. That's what's going on for me. Let's pass it to Julie, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'll add a few notes. I'm a hanger-on, y'all, but a big supporter. So I'm the ecologist at Jean Lafitte National Historical Park and Preserve. And just to add on to what Gina said and offer the contrast, our area experienced a 2.5 or so year drought starting in about September or October of 2021 and lasting straight through December or into early December of last year. It was an exceptional drought, both in its intensity and its duration. In contrast, so since it ended, we received approximately sort of typical rainfall, December through May, I'll say, and then 8 inches each in each month of June and July. So it's lush out at the Barataria Preserve Unit. And I was out yesterday and was just delighted to see all the vines that are flowering right now. I'm a big fan of experiencing the subtropics here at the northern boundary of the subtropical zone. And yes, it was super hot, super humid, and very lush. Oh, I need to pass it. Howard, you're up.
Not sure if Howard has audio. I think Howard's a new person too, so welcome. If you want to put anything in the chat, feel free. We're not hearing you, but it looks like you're unmuted, but we can come back as well. I'll just go to Kim then.
Hi, everyone. Kim Eichhorst. I'm the program director for the Bosque Ecosystem Monitoring Program. And yeah, we've also been kind of with this since the beginning. And we're now the phenology. It's been a combination of both absurdly hot, and we've also had a lot of those nice rains. So a lot of we started monitoring our yerba mansa fields, and they're both looking really thick, but also really dried out, and a lot of the woolly bear caterpillars. So they're just like lattice work leaves right now. They're just hammered with the caterpillars that are out. But moving forward, we've developed a new education plan. So we have some schools that can't come out with us every month. And so for some of our kiddos, they are now learning phenology and picking their own trees to monitor so that they're not on our schedule, but they're going out to sites where they can look at cottonwood phenology and tie that into changes in groundwater, which is kind of exciting. And we have two grants that are coming in. One is coming in January of 2025, so we should be able to really move forward on our tribal listening sessions and have that be a robust, well, hopefully a really nice plan instead of kind of just a virtual listening session. And I don't there's V Harmon.
I think it's Foncio.
Yes, sorry. I'm on my ODOT email because I just came in from the fields and I hadn't changed. My name is Fonsil Harmon. I don't get to participate in the calls as often as I would like to. I manage the Monarch CCA Rights of Way as Habitat program for the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. This year, every year when we're in the rights of way, we see so many different things happening because in Oklahoma, as Jane can attest to. We have floods, we have drought, we have everything. And this year we had the most amazing bloom of Gaillardia everywhere. It was all over the state. It was growing up the sodded wing walls on our bridges. I don't know what that's all about. When we go back and look, I think, because we collect data, spring and fall migration for monarchs. And I've never seen that in our rights of way ever. And I'm actually seeing a second bloom right now in some areas. So that was kind of, it's been really exciting to watch the different seasons, what's happens. And I guess as far as for Oklahoma, back in 2016, when they named I-35 as the Monarch Highway and 6 states signed on to it, including Texas, a group here formed, and it was the Oklahoma Monarch and Pollinator Collaborative. And that group was, I think it was 80 people, Jane, you might remember, signed on, and they worked on the state conservation plan, mostly for monarchs, but also for pollinator habitat. And we now have a new society, and in August 20th and 21st, we're having a 2-day summit. We're bringing all the partners who are interested in monarch and pollinator conservation to the zoo in Oklahoma City. And we're going to start looking at habitat. We're going to look at where there's experts and citizens and nonprofit organizations. It's a ton of people who have been working on this for a long time. We're bringing them back together, and we're going to rewrite, hopefully, the state conservation master plan. Update, because it's mostly written. But so that's kind of something we're really excited about.
That's awesome. Would there be any chance to kind of spread the word about Time to Restore there? I don't know if you could use any like postcards or other kind of materials to hand out, or if there would be an opportunity for that.
Yes, there would, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And Erin, you sent me, I think I've requested like several cards, but I'm going to go back through because we have like a little packet that we use for our ODOT outreach tables and also for our Okies for Monarch table. We always have your stuff available. So I will go back through and make sure we have enough stuff. And if not, I know with your permission, I can print flyers and stuff, but I think I might still have enough cards, but I'll let you know as soon as possible.
Yeah, and we can also send more. So just let me know what you need.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, I think we got through everybody. So the main things I wanted to talk about today are I can share a couple more resources that our student worker Mackenzie has been working on. She's been preparing some more of those Phenophase photo guides for some more of the Time to Restore species. I'm going to try to get those uploaded on the Time to Restore website. And then I also wanted to share some new data visualization options for looking at open flowers timing in our priority species that the person who has been working on our data analysis, Erin Zylstra, has been compiling. So we can get your feedback on that. But are there any other topics or anything else anyone wants to make sure we cover today?
Did you want to talk about the app update stuff?
We can, we can kind of share that. We're not allowed to like really broadcast it yet, but yeah, we can share it. I don't know, Teresa, if you want to share that too, but we do have an exciting update about Nature's Notebook.
I can do it, but you can do it. Either way, we're fortunate enough to have received a word that will be funded by the National Science Foundation for a pretty sizable project, which will enable us to do this really meaningful, hopefully intentional redesign, like overhaul of the mobile app. And it needs it so bad. We know this, and it's just really exciting because we so frequently do things kind of I know you all are so familiar with this, just on a wing and a prayer and duct tape and bubble gum and just scrapping along. But we scoped it thoroughly last year, and we're getting the budget we asked for, which is just, it's like a weird, crazy, awesome feeling. So we had our first team meeting yesterday about it because it's a multi-year project, but we don't want to wait till the end of several years before we can launch it. So we're trying to figure out what functionality would we like to have in the first release of the new app and then subsequent functionality. But there's several things that should make it a lot more appealing to folks that have been doing Nature's Notebook, as well as especially folks that are brand new to it. We have a much smoother, like slow and progressive introduction to the phenophases and to observing altogether. Starting, if you're brand new to it, you're presented with very simple things like, hey, are you making your first observation? Do you see leaves? Do you see open flowers? Do you see fruits? And that's it. And then, as folks if they seem like they like that, then you get invited to get more complex with what you're observing. There will also be cool bells and whistles eventually, like badges and notifications and invitations to participate from within the app. Hey, what we're toying with is things like, hey, someone in your area just reported that they saw open flowers on lilacs. Is your lilac flowering? That kind of thing, to hopefully spark more data collection kind of at the point at which, the time of the year when it's really relevant. What else, Erin? Why am I not forgetting?
Yeah, we'll have one-time observations as an option.
Yes.
So if you're out, maybe you have a site at home, but if you're out on a trail or somewhere else and you just want to make a one-time observation, you'll be able to do that from anywhere without having to set up a site and register plants and all of that if you're not planning on going back there.
And photos. Eventually, also, this is a little bit further down the line, I think, we are partnering up with iNaturalist so that you can collect photos of your phenophase that you're observing through Nature's Notebook, but it will actually be stored in the iNaturalist database. And so the observations that you make on that organism through Nature's Notebook is stored in our database, and the photo is stored in iNaturalist, and the information is actually linked kind of behind the scenes, enabling even more robust research opportunities down the line. So yeah, we've got big plans, and now we're trying to figure out how to actually do this, but we're really excited.
Yeah, one more thing that is relevant for this group is we'll also have QR codes that local phenology leaders can kind of access via some portal on the website where they can say, like, I want to set up a QR code that I'm going to put on this plant at my site. So visitors can come in, and even if they've never heard of Nature's Notebook, they'll be able to see it. They'll be able to put their phone on it, take a picture, and then get some sort of a web form kind of thing and submit an observation without having to sign up, so that you can have like lots of people that are just kind of like casually coming to your sites be able to submit data without having to go through all that process of signing up.
Spring 26, we're hoping, just to set expectations at a reasonable scale. I would love for it to be sooner, but
a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Is this going to be like for anyone with the app? This will be nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
This is amazing.
Yay!
Wow.
Yay! We were so excited. Our whole team wants to do this so bad. So it's really probably the most fun project we've ever done because everybody just is so ready for this. It's so overdue. So thank you for your enthusiasm.
Both the having the ability for schools to go out and make their observations without having a site set up is great, but also the QR codes. We do have posts for return photos, and anyone can take a picture at that location. So it'd be great to have the QR codes.
Yeah.
At the same, this is amazing.
Yay.
Awesome. And we will have we've built in this idea of having a mobile app working group where we have people that are both experienced Nature's Notebook users and people from audiences that we haven't really reached yet that are missing from the Nature's Notebook observers. Part of this group that's going to be informing us about, what they'd like to see, giving feedback as we work with the IT team and say like, okay, this is what it might look like. Do you like it? Do you have revisions? So we'll be reaching back out once we have everything finalized and we're like up and running. We'll be reaching out with opportunities to be involved in that working group. So yeah, you'll hear from us soon on that, hopefully. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions on that? I know I've heard a lot of feedback from people on this call about the app already and ways that we can improve it. So that's definitely got into the thinking behind the proposal and what we're hoping to do. So appreciate all of the very honest feedback over the years on what's wrong with the app. We really appreciate it. Okay, any other topics or anything we want to discuss? I will share then the Phenophase photo guide. So we have 3 of them so far. And I don't remember if I shared this one previously, but you guys might have seen these before. These are basically like a one page guide that has some information about the species on the front, and then the back has a lot more detail about what you're looking for with the different phenophases. So this one for bergamot has pictures of, when you would say open flowers or ripe fruits. And then it has the phenophase definitions, which are also in the app. If you're using the app and you hit that little I button next to the phenophase, this is basically that same information. So we're hoping that this provides a nice visual resource that will help people with making those observations. So we've got the bee balm or the wild bergamot, we got cardinal flower, and then the green antelope horn so far. And we'll be hopefully finishing up the other ones in the next couple weeks. So I'll get those up on the Time to Restore webpage, and then people can download them if they want from there. And then also, I don't know, Jane, if you guys have had a chance to use the little data sheets that we made too, but I tried to help by providing Jane's group with a really simple, kind of like a shortened version of the data sheets that only have a few of the questions. If you have people that are maybe uncomfortable with using the app, or they're just totally turned off by opening the app and seeing that huge list of phenophase questions, we came up with a way that you can pass out a paper data sheet to people, they can fill it out, and then they can turn it back in, and then your organization can like enter that data on behalf of those people.
Which was very helpful. They've been going out. I've not seen any come back in. I'll check with Brandon. He may be hoarding them all. So, but thank you for doing that for us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so if you have any other situations like that where you have someone who's like computer savvy who wants to help enter data for other people, and you can give them this simplified data sheet, we can send that out to you as well. Right, I guess we can move on then to the data visualization stuff. Let me share my screen again. So we've been really lucky to have Erin Zylstra, who's a quantitative ecologist with Tucson Audubon, which is a local nonprofit here. And we're contracting with her because she has amazing data analysis and visualization skills. So she's been helping kind of think through improved ways to think about the data analysis for this project, and different ways to visualize the data that we have. So just kind of starting out with what we have right now, this probably looks familiar to you. This is one of our heat map calendars that we have on the info sheets for this project, and it was part of the story map. Basically, this is showing for one of our priority species, common buttonbush, an idea of when you might see open flowers and ripe seeds throughout the year. So in the calendar, which goes from January to December, you have basically little week-long periods, and the gray ones are where no one said yes to open flowers, and then the yellow ones are where you had at least one report of open flowers, and then the darker the orange is basically the more records. So it kind of gives you a sense of like when are the most people saying yes for open flowers throughout the year, and then the same thing with ripe seeds. What this doesn't really do is it's a proportion. So it's saying like, if this was like the darkest orange, it's like all the reports were a yes for open flowers. If it's a lighter orange, it was like maybe only a fraction, like 10% of the records were yes. But it doesn't really say anything about sample size, and it's kind of hard to really visualize where the peaks might be because you have to really kind of squint to see the gradient of colors there. So definitely some limitations there. So Erin Zylstra has been going back through the data that we have available for the short list of priority species, that list of 8. but then also expanding out to those longer lists that we came up with, where we had originally voted in those state workshops and we had that longer list, where sometimes some of the states wanted, they had more votes for the different species, as well as the newer list for Louisiana that we came up with as well. So Erin's gone through and kind of looked at how much data do we have available for the different species. And I think there were about maybe 8 or 9 species where she felt like there was enough data where she could actually start to make some visualizations. So I picked out common buttonbush again. So this is just a table looking at how much data we have. The interesting thing is you can see that the observations really started ticking up in last year, which was kind of like our first full year of data collection for the project. So we really didn't have very many in the South Central region, very many data points, and then we had a lot more come in last year. So it makes me hopeful for this project kind of making an impact and getting more data in the region, which is what we need. And then we had, obviously more data from outside the region and the rest of the country as well. But still, it's kind of like ticked up more in recent years. So if we kind of look at that on a map scale, you can see the data points, the locations where people are reporting buttonbush in the South Central region, and then the green are the data points that are outside the region. So then she started out by trying to graph this in a different way using a line graph rather than that heat map calendar. And I think what's really interesting about this, if you just focus first on the orange, which is the South Central, hopefully my thing isn't covering up. Hopefully it's just on my screen that my Zoom window is covering the legend, but the orange points are the South Central data, and then the green are everybody else outside the region. And so this one, what we're looking at is it's again on a weekly basis. So each of the points are basically what was the proportion of plants with open flowers for that week. And you can see, it's kind of like instead of seeing the darker colors, we're seeing the taller lines for the proportion. So it's a higher proportion when we get into June, and then it kind of drops down and then goes up again. But then the added information is this is the size of those icons indicates the number of observations. So you get a little bit more of a sense about the sample size that's behind the data. So instead of just seeing a little bit darker color, it's a more clear way to see like how much data we have, as well as how many people were saying yes. So I think it's a nice way to kind of collapse all that down. This one also includes the outside of the region data points, so you can get a sense of how different the phenology might be outside of the region. And I don't know that we'd want to necessarily include this in visualizations that we present as an output of the project, but it is useful for thinking about whether we should include all the data from the country or only include the South Central data. This one, it's actually pretty similar. You are seeing kind of the rest of the US has a peak in open flowers that's kind of similar to what we see in the South Central. But we're seeing this added peak here in the South Central that's not showing up very well on the outside of the US. So it might be a reason to exclude those data and really just focus on the South Central, because we don't want to be confusing and kind of like bringing in phenology that isn't really part of what we're seeing in this area. So as long as we have enough data, I think we'll probably want to not include these other outside of the region data. Any questions on that so far? Anything confusing about this? Basically,
I really like this as a visualization tool. I think that it's pretty easily visually interpreted. I definitely think it's improvement on the last way we were kind of presenting this data. So yeah, definitely like that a lot.
Cool. So then if we exclude those outside of the South Central region data and then just focus in on the South Central, then we can kind of add even more detail onto this to look at some more aspects. So again, we have the higher the points on here, the higher proportion. So this is like, almost all of the records were yes for open flowers. So that's kind of the peak. This one also has this black line on here, which is meant to kind of be like an overall look at what the flowering is looking like. It's trying to fit a line basically to all these points throughout the year. And so that's what the black line is. It's kind of like an average of those different points. But then the gray shading represents how confident we are with that line and kind of when these peaks are happening. And so the fatter the shading, the lower the confidence. It's like we're more uncertain because there's either a lot of noise happening with like the up and down, or there's fewer data points, we don't have as big of a sample size. And then the skinnier the shading, the more confidence we have about that. So I think there's a lot packed into this one too. And it gives you not just when the flowering is peaking, but also what the sample size is, and then what the confidence is, like kind of what's the uncertainty around those estimates. So that's, I don't know if that's too much information, but that's like an added aspect of visualizing the data. Any thoughts on this one?
Erin, in terms of the actual users that are out there, or the frontline team members that are trying to recruit data collectors, does this tool help us know whether number of data points is more important or number of observations is more important? Does it help inform us in terms of who we need to really focus on by species, or do we have enough confidence to be able to talk about that yet?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess one way we could use this is to say like we feel like we don't have enough confidence in the data and like the middle part of the summer. So that could be a reason to focus data collection efforts in that time of year. We could say like we actually are a little bit better at showing when the onset is, because this is a skinnier shaded area. And then we feel less comfortable about, what's happening in the middle of flowering. And then maybe the end of flowering is like also a little bit wider. I think we could also, maybe I'll go to the next one. So this is, again, a heat map, but it shows you the sample size in a different way. So instead of the points on here, it's showing you like the number, hopefully this isn't in the way, the number of observations. And so Erin put on here basically like a kind of arbitrary, but a threshold. So if we said like, we're really hoping to get at least 8 observations per week. Where are we in that goal? This is kind of like a really easy way to see that. So I don't know that in terms of like sharing this information with people who are using it for like planting decisions or deciding on species, I don't know that this is so useful, but maybe it's more for us as like people trying to motivate the data collectors. It shows us where to focus efforts, or where we might be falling a little bit short on the data collection side of things.
And then one more question, Erin, do we see variation across the species? Are there certain species that help us more than others, and vice versa?
So yeah, this is one of the ones where we had more data points than the others for sure. So the only 2 that Erin came up with that had enough data to even do this report kind of thing for were the common buttonbush and then the common sunflower. All the other ones we didn't have enough to even like, they were all really low, 1 or 2 observations per week. So yeah, I think it could help us see where we need to collect more data, which species to emphasize.
Very good.
Yeah, and another thing, if we're thinking about visualizing this in terms of the info sheets and sharing this back with people who are making decisions about pollinator restoration, we probably want to have more species. We'd have like multiple species. So if you think about how does it work to kind of stack these together? And so with this one, we've kind of, in the past info sheets, we've had like 3 or 4 of these where we kind of, for the different species, stack them together. And that shows you kind of a community picture of when things are flowering at different times. We might be able to do this for this, but it is kind of like it's a bigger looking graph. So I don't know if there's like a good way to think about showing at a community level a bunch of different species at the same time. I think it would be confusing if you have them stacked together, but you could, I guess, like have them all in a row, like in a panel almost. We also, when we have the deliverables, we'll have an info sheet version, but we could also have more of a website that's more interactive where we could include some more of this, because there's like so many different aspects. We could have this graph plus this one and this one all kind of in an interface where people could play around with it and then, look at different species together. So I kind of want to just put these 2 back up here just as kind of a comparison. I don't know that it makes sense to have both of these, it's kind of like they are kind of saying the same thing. I think this has a lot more detail. But just thinking about like if you were to share something like this with the people that you're working with, do you feel like is one of these more intuitive? Is it, would you prefer to see something more like the heat map or something like this line graph, or maybe it's like a less complicated version of the line graph? Can you kind of imagine like what would be the best thing to share that would communicate like when flowering is happening to the people that you're working with?
I think the line graph for sure. I think it's a more common visual data representation and just like general knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be good to have both, just for the different interpretations you could get through the various ways of displaying this data. But I think for public audiences, the line graph is probably my preference.
Okay.
I would agree. Also, I think the people we work with are going to find the line graph much more accessible.
Great. Okay.
Aaron, I also agree. I also really like that you can see on the line graph where you need to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
It shows us where we have a bit of weakness in our ability to speak authoritatively, and I like that. And I think that the users would see that as a cautionary as well.
Okay. Cool. Any other thoughts on these? Yeah, Kim?
No,
Aaron,
I
I do like
agree.
that. Go ahead.
I like aesthetically, the heat map is unique and really attractive for like a handout, but
Mm-hmm.
as far as utilization, the line graph is what it's very clear and it's I think harder to misinterpret.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, I was just going to add the very bottom, in terms of a back of the house type understanding. I find that very helpful because it could show us where we really need to push volunteers and program participants in making observations. So I suspect here in the southern part of Texas, at least, the summer is going to become a real struggle because it's
Mm-hmm.
so hot. But it'd be great to be able to see that so that we could know, okay, we're coming upon a period, maybe we need to ramp up our hands-on in terms of really rooting them on to get out there and get those observations made.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think that's a really good point. I've been doing the bulk of the observations locally this summer, and even I've been struggling. I'm the one whose job this is. So I think that it probably, like David says, a phenomenon would be interesting to be able to quantify a little bit more particularly.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, so I think we could come up with this kind of a graph for all the species, regardless of if they have enough data to make the visuals for, if that's helpful to kind of get a sense. I think that 8 was kind of arbitrary. I think originally Aaron had started with 10 because it was like seemed like a nice round number, and it seemed like the ones with 10, it had that like the lower or the higher confidence interval, the less messiness in the graph. So we could reconsider what that threshold is. But yeah, we'll talk to her about whether we could come up with like a way to put these somewhere where we can easily share them, and then we can kind of be referencing them at least in the quarterly calls to see kind of where we're at for the different species. And once we add on the Texas species, I know we're going to have a really long list because we added quite a few for Louisiana as well. But I think there's a way that we can figure out to make sure we can share all the data. So the next thing that Aaron Zilster is going to be working on is revisiting those climate models. So bringing in the information about what are the drivers to the onset and the peak and flowering timing. So we'll be able to share more about that on the next call. I'm hoping that I'd love to get some more feedback from other people. We have a list of like 120 people on the Time to Restore participant list, and often we have a pretty small group on these calls. So maybe we can put together a survey to get some more input from people once we kind of, we figure out maybe this one is the best one for sharing this kind of information, and like how would we stack those together and like, share a bunch of information about different species at once. You can get some input from other people on that as well. And then we'll probably have some some more questions on there related to the climate models too, once we have some more results on those. We had said that we would do some more stakeholder workshops to get more feedback on these, and I think we could still do that too, but it might be good to try to do a survey because we've had pretty good responses to the surveys in the past, and I feel like it allows a lot of people to weigh in. So we'll do a combination of those things. All right. Those are the main things that I had to share. So I don't know if anyone else has any last things or anything coming up you want to talk about. I put the link to the Time to Restore Texas workshop for the registration in the chat. If you have anyone that you know in Texas, feel free to share it with them. I also shared around the flyers that we have on the last email, so I'm hoping we'll start to get the registrations rolling in on that. All right, well, we can end early if there's nothing else. Thank you all for giving feedback. It was really helpful to hear your thoughts on the visualizations. I'll be sharing those back with Erin Silstress. So thanks so much.
Thank you. They look great. Thank you for sharing them.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll share them with my colleagues. I think that, yeah, that they're going to be really good tools.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for coming, and we'll be in touch over email, but good to see you.
Good to see everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.